What's going on, guys? Justin, aka Boomer, Beer League Bum Hockey Reviews, and today I'm going to give you my snapshot review on what I think is some pretty crappy Hyperlite protective gear. We've got the pants, we got the shoalies, we got the gloves, and I'm going to run you through why I think this is one of the worst protective gear releases in a while. So stick around. Today we are also out testing the Hyperlite shoalies, not elbows, because I'll put the elbows up on the screen as to why I didn't do that. And instead we are testing the AS5 elbow pads with the Hyperlites, as I like this.
You look like a transformer.
I am a transformer, yes, correct. My wife, the producer, behind the scenes. So I've always been a general big fan of the Vapor protective line because they've always tried to keep it kind of light and really mobile and, you know, kind of not super protective, but perfect for kind of a beer league guy or rec hockey player. But after putting this on for the first little bit, I was like super excited. And then as each game progressed and the more that I wore it and the more that I kept going in and out of the games and taking it on and off and throwing it in my bag, I realized just the quality wasn't there with the Hyperlite stuff. And I was pretty disappointed because in this first skate, I actually enjoyed it. It's comfortable. You know, I like how it looks. It's got some cool looks to it. Not like that really matters, but overall, it had a good potential, and then it just kind of went downhill. And the cons of it all, which I'll get into, just far outweigh the rest of it. Like, you can see how stupid this, like, bicep guard is, trying to, like, get it organized and how flimsy it is. So let's get into the review here, but just understand, like, this is just not Bauer's best stuff ever by any means. Maybe I'm a little bit hard on Bauer, but this is the top end equipment, and you're telling me that nobody questioned things like flimsy stuff hanging off after you strap it, or materials that don't hold their shape, or flimsy bicep guards that maybe needed a better or more quality strap. It just seems odd for the top end gear. So I'll mention it right here that I think the FT4 stuff, which is kind of the competitor for the Hyperlite, is a far better beer league setup if you're trying to go light. So one of the things that drives me nuts about the Hyperlite is this constantly comes undone, and it's also not adjustable. So despite sitting here like this, it's not adjustable. So it comes off all the time, and it makes me a little bit crazy. Came off on both of these while we were testing today and twisted, and now I got to put them back on. And as you can see, it's a huge pain in the ass to get them back in here. Now add in this really annoying strapping system on the bicep guard, and you got yourself a frustrating ass bicep guard and shoulder pad to deal with. Now I'm going to get into this, but I just wanted to show you a quick picture as how misshapen it is. I pulled these shoulder pads out of my bag and they're completely mangled. I've never had this issue before. So let's get into it in the full review. All right, guys, so Hyperlite protective. We've got the shoulder pads, we've got gloves, we've got elbow pads, and we've got pants. And overall, after wearing the Hyperlite here for a number of weeks, a number of games, I'm really not impressed with the Hyperlite protective gear, with the exception of the shin guards, which I did do a separate video on, the quality aspect of these products. And the Hyperlite shoulders, they're actually quite comfortable and very light, but after you've been wearing them for a while, you realize just how bad the quality really is. And what I'm talking about is, the first thing is the actual joints in here drive me crazy. So the way this is set up is this bends right here for some reason. I don't really understand why. And I'm constantly looking like this with my jersey because this is always just bunching up. And it's bent, and now it's probably just sitting like that from being in my bag. So overall, it doesn't have much rigidity, and it kind of molds to however it's just sitting in your bag, etc. Not something I'm a fan of. Second thing I'm not a fan of, as I just touched on, these are just awful. I don't know what it is about this thing, but it twists and it does not stay on very well, and always by the end of every game. So I always have pad here, and by the end of every game, it's twisted, it's around, and it's just not holding. And that's because the strapping system is this weird thing from Bauer where it has an extra piece and you have to pull it and put it across. And I have big arms. Like, at the end of the day, I have like 17-inch arms. And for some reason, this won't actually stay on me, and it's a large. So now get a bigger individual who maybe doesn't train and stuff like I do, and these are not gonna stay on at all. They're gonna just twist, they're gonna move, they're gonna be behind you, and I'm constantly finding that I'm adjusting my shoulder pads throughout the game, and I'm just not a fan. The other thing that I don't like about these shoulders is the materials inside here is extremely damp and does not dry. So I don't know what this is supposed to be, but I played 2 days ago and this stuff is still wet and it's just sitting upstairs here. So this material, whatever Bauer chose, is just not ideal. Some of their older shoulder pads, like the 1X, the original 1X and stuff, they were mostly built out of type of like plastics and things like that and curved composite with very little of this type of material, and it just wasn't as wet. So I'm not a fan of this material, and it's in both this, it's in the gloves, and it's in the pants, and I'm not a fan of it. And then my final thoughts on this are, however they decided to put this together, all this material does not hold its shape. So I'm constantly pulling it out of my bag and it's all like crumpled up and it's just sitting there and it just never really returns to form. And as you can see, I have a whole bunch of creases in here from all the moving, and I just don't think it's gonna last. So overall, I'm just not a huge fan of the Hyperlite shoulder pads. And if you're looking for this style of shoulder pad, super light, super lightweight, the FT4 Pro and the FT4 line is a much better product in terms of this style of shoulder pad. This is targeted at the super lightweight, the super mobile, the kind of wearing the feather light stuff. That's what this is aimed at. And I personally believe the CCM FT4 Pro is just a better overall shoulder pad. So that's the shoulder pads. Hyperlite Protective Glove. This is probably one of the gloves that I've worn where I've put it on and I thought it was gonna be good. And I wasn't a huge fan of the cuff, but after wearing it for a number of weeks, I cannot stand this glove. And I'll tell you why. The biggest thing, again, is how they built it. And this Hyperlite has this weird pad, just like the Hyperlite shoulder does, where this gets super damp, and it's annoying as hell because every time you put your hand in here, it's moving around, and then you pull it out and it comes out with it. And if you're constantly taking your hand in and out of your glove throughout the game, this is soaking wet, it gets pulled out, and you're constantly adjusting it and moving around in your glove. I just don't understand how Bauer has 2 years to go from the 2X Pro to this glove, and this is what they come up with. See, I moved it again and this stupid thing is just coming out and it's just agitating the heck out of me, and I'm just not a fan of these gloves. So I don't know what it is about Bauer and their recent gloves. Now, in terms of comfort and fit, it's very comfortable. The palms feel really nice, and it has a really nice overall lightness to it, which is what they were going for. Like in the Hyperlite, I think they said that it was the lightest glove ever. But just overall, you're gonna put this on, you're gonna get annoyed by pulling this thing out all the time, and you're just gonna be like, man, is it the quality of this glove just is not there? So in terms of this glove, I don't recommend it at all. I do like the ultrasonic. Anybody that knows me knows that I constantly go back to my ultrasonic. It is my favorite glove right now. And I'm sure there's other gloves on the market that I have not tried yet, but I will. But I'm telling you right now, stay away from the Hyperlite. It will drive you absolutely nuts. Here's just a quick close-up of that weird little pad in there that moves for some reason. And as soon as you put your hand in there, how it comes out. It's very weird and it's very bloody annoying. I'll tell you right now, this will drive you insane. If you bought these gloves and you're feeling this right now, I feel your pain. So I would just sell them and move on to something else. Okay, let's quickly talk about the Vapor elbow pads, because ever since the 2X Pro and now the Hyperlite, the elbow pads, which I'll put up on the screen, are probably the worst style and making of elbow pads I've seen in quite some time. I actually did one of my first reviews was on the 2X Pro elbow pads, and I hated them. I don't know what it is about that huge honking elbow that sticks out. Nobody else does that except Sherwood. I'll put that up right here as well.
I don't know why they do this. Very uncomfortable. But the Hyperlite elbow pads are just really bad. I put them on in the store and I was gonna buy them just so I could review them in this video. And I was just like, I am not wasting money on these dumpster fire elbow pads. I do not know who designs this, who at Bauer is responsible, but at the end of the day, they're so uncomfortable. The 2X Pro had the same problem. They would bunch up your jersey. If you had your hand laying down, the huge elbow sticking out would just be all messed up with your jersey. They're so uncomfortable because of it. You're constantly messing around with it. It's just bizarre. It's just not necessary. And frankly, to fall on such a large point, it can move too much. When I was testing the AS5 elbow pads, they didn't move at all when you hit them on the ice. And I'll put that video up here right now just to show you, even though this isn't the AS5 elbow pad video. That's how I was actually dealing with it to see if it moved. The Hyperlite elbows are junk. Bauer, go back to the drawing board. Good Lord.
All right, as we finish up the Bauer Hyperlite line of protective and my disappointment in this line, the pants are kind of sitting at a medium aspect. Now, in terms of actual pants right now, you have the AS5s and you have the Hyperlites that just came out. If you're thinking about new pants and you want to get one of the newest things, it's kind of like I do, I'm always interested in that. Definitely go with the AS5s. They're just a better overall pant and you will like them much more. And the biggest reason, I'll tell you right now, is because the Hyperlite line has this weird red padding that I've just talked about on both the shoulders and the gloves, and it just does not work. It gets so wet, it just does not dry, and it does not hold its shape. So as you can see right here, look at this piece right here. Like what is this even doing? It's just sitting there. But it's completely bent and has a crease in it, and it just does not return to form at all. And I'm not sure why. And look at it, it like comes up and out of the pants because there's no structure to this at all. So as you can see here, that is just creased and just does not work very well. And I'm just not a fan of it. And then to top it all off, the other reason I don't like these pants is because the floating inside here, as you can see, it actually has a weird structure to it where this piece goes around. And if you want to crank it on so it actually sits properly on your hips, all you feel is the strap. And you feel it against your back here. When you crank them on, you're just like, man, this is really uncomfortable. And the reason is because you have this weird front where these, you can crank them pretty good, and they have a weird floating internal structure to them that just has no way to pad the rest of it as it grips on you. The other thing I can't stand is, I don't know why people can't come up with a good strapping system for the pants, but as soon as you cramp these on, what are you left with? You're just left with stupid string things sitting here, driving you nuts, holding your jersey up, getting in the way, etc. Like, you're telling me that nobody can actually engineer a pair of pants that don't do this, that have like a nice place to tuck them, or you build like a belt buckle here and you put them in? I don't understand. This is a high-end $200+ pant, and you've got these little strings hanging out here like it's a $50 pair of pants. It's just bizarre. In terms of the pros, if you want to call it that, with the Hyperlite pants, is they are extremely light and they are lighter than the AS5s. If you want the lightness again, that's what you're looking for. You might be okay with these, but you're gonna get agitated with the red padding that's in here, and you're not gonna really like the strapping system. But if lightness is what you're going for, is what it is. In terms of comfort and stuff, like these added things like the comfort edge here and things, this stuff is nice, but I honestly don't find that I notice it because this isn't against you. What's against you is this internal floating structure that's clamped on you. And unfortunately, it's just not that comfortable. So my overall thoughts on the Hyperlite, it's garbage. So if you want that style of stuff, go with the FT4 from CCM. It's far better. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope I wasn't too hard on you, Bauer, but I think we do need to do better. See you guys next time.